Welcome to Pesto Comics Audio Edition. This is the entry for July 23rd, 2025. Con Journal. Another spotlight by the Wayside. My Saturday at Wayside Comics and Cocktails, and rethinking the local comic shop. Welcome back. This weekend is San Diego Comic-Con, and I'm feeling the FOMO hard this time. I was very lucky to be there last year as a DC fan with the launch of the Absolute line and the All In initiative. I got to meet cool people like the White Ash crew thanks to an introduction from Naked Kaiju Woman variant artist Mick Bayers. I missed the Fantastic Four drone show somehow, but attended the Black Jacket breakfast with Scott Snyder and Nick Dragata. It was a great time, and I'm regretting not making the trip. I made a pragmatic decision, instead opting for New York Comic Con this year. As well as Pesto Comics is doing, I'm not yet getting invited to cons, so it's all out of pocket. Choices must be made. This week made me feel further than ever from landing a guest spot, as I got bad news in the form of a rejection from Fan Expo Canada. We're still in the running to host a live edition of the Instant Ink comic book podcast, but I won't get my hopes up. Fortunately, there are more welcoming establishments like Wayside Comics and Cocktails in Newmarket, Ontario. The town will be doing Summerfest on Fan Expo weekend, so I may just end up north of Toronto for a day as a break from walking the show floor as a mere attendee. Cons are ephemeral. Stores are there for you, rain or shine, but not all are created equal. We'll discuss that. But first, Worklog. This week I tabled at Wayside, got late survey orders out to backers for Naked Kaiju Woman and From Parts Unknown #3, and I updated the release calendar section on pestocomics.com. This week, I will get an outline for Project Time to the artist. I'll get the script for Naked Kaiju Woman 3 to Raphael. I'll finish the series section of pestocomics.com. Get the Instant Ink podcast Substack current for what's being released. And edit the shorts for the Instant Ink comic book podcast. In terms of project updates, not much movement here. So number 1, we have From Parts Unknown #4, which just has over a week left in the campaign. If you go to the Substack, you'll see that there's a secret backer award for newsletter followers. And if you've backed any of From Parts Unknown in the past, check your email for a project update from that campaign, as there's a link there for a secret reward. Number 2, Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1 is available on Kindle Unlimited now through October. So I've extended the run, as Big Smoke Pulp Volume 2 will launch a little later this year. So you still have an opportunity to read these 40 incredible stories from 40 excellent authors, including yours truly, on Kindle Unlimited. And number 3, the call for entries for Big Smoke Pulp Volume 2 remains open. If you have a short story under 5,000 words, send it my way. You can find out more about that by going to bigsmokepulp.com or clicking the link on the Substack. Now let's talk about comic shops. Main story, the right kind of store. I love a good comic shop. Whenever I travel, I always make sure to go to an LCS or two. I always find a feeling of familiarity while also seeing something new and different. I've been to many over the years. Although I've seen similar concepts, rest in peace, Sidekick Comics in Toronto, I've never seen one that feels as welcoming as Wayside Comics and Cocktails in Newmarket. It's a corny and frankly overused sentiment, but building a community is just as important as selling books. As Wayside owner Omar will tell you, there are just as many pratfalls as there are benefits to running a business this way. Still, I feel like it's the way forward for comic shops. I don't believe that this is some great revelation. This has been the way to run any kind of periodical shop since Amazon undercut everyone. Though there's nothing like a good used bookshop. Another setting I frequent on the road. Making connections with readers and making them feel like part of something is the biggest advantage an LCS can get. The most encouraging trend I saw on the weekend was several young kids coming through the door and looking for the latest Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Thor, or X-Men comic, and parents happy to encourage their kids' reading habits. We've been hearing that comics are dead and kids only want to read manga, or worse, they'll wait for the inevitable anime release. But that's not at all what I saw on Saturday. It's anecdotal, yes, but it gives me hope that there's still room for growth. Back in my day, when I first got into comics in the early 2000s, after a hiatus during high school where I tried to fit in before the OC and Raimi's Spider-Man made it cool, or at least acceptable, to read comics, I've been to many stores that would make the Simpsons comic book guy proud. There's no feeling like walking into a shop and being insulted for your taste in comics by the person behind the counter. I was nearly driven away from returning to comics entirely when I visited a store in my hometown looking for this Russian Superman I saw in the arts section of the Toronto Star. Not having bought a comic myself before, only borrowing them from my cousin in the 90s, delicately turning the pages of Superman Triangle era and Claremont X-Men comics, I had no idea what an FOC was. I assumed comics were like any book. You walk into the store and buy it. I was rudely corrected, so much so that I avoided that particular clerk when I eventually licked my wounds and returned to the shop. It was a different time. There were no digital comics, though Comixology was right around the corner, and Amazon was still a quirky concept. Plus, I didn't yet have a credit card. If I wasn't so intrigued by the comics themselves, I would have never returned and wouldn't be here making my own comics today. This is why shops like Wayside, and more like it, including Nowhere, Capcan, Midtown, Forbidden Planet, Mile High, and a ton more I've been through yet can't pull from my memory right now, are integral to keeping the medium as we know it alive. Changing tides. The as we know it part is key. I've talked time and time again about comics needing a bit of a revolution. We're holding on to too many old farts like me, the ones who feverishly buy variant covers that artificially prop up sales. We need new approaches to the industry. And with that, new approaches to the storefronts that represent them. The way I see it, the biggest strength that comics have is the community that builds it. Look at convention culture. The prose book market is a significantly bigger one than that of comics, yet you don't see the undying passion that you do for all kinds of comics, and not just superhero ones either. Or maybe I'm just biased. I know the comics themselves are doing their part, regardless of what grumpy YouTubers or Twitter trolls might want you to believe. There's more great comics to read than ever. It's just a matter of getting it into people's hands. And you can't do that until you get them through the door. I'll always be there on the other side of it to welcome those that decide to venture in. Until next time. Are you going to San Diego Comic-Con? New York Comic-Con? Do you have a favorite comic shop I should visit one day? Let me know in the comments. And now let's look at what's coming up on the Substack. Next week on July 30th, what's to come? The next 6 months of Pesto Comics. It's a free post where I'm going to give you a preview of everything I have planned from now through next February, including some extra projects that don't really have a release date, but they're actively being worked on. There's a lot more coming, so definitely check it out. And then August 2nd, putting the Instant Ink Comic Book podcast together. This will be a paid post that kind of operates as an anniversary celebration for the Instant Ink Comic Book podcast. We'll have been doing it for a year by the time that this post comes out, so it'll be a lot of fun, not just to celebrate the podcast, but also to do a little bit of a deep dive in how it's all put together, the tools I use, how I manage guests, and all that fun stuff. So as always, there's a little bit of a free preview that comes with those posts, and then a lot more behind it. I know I've been really focused on maintaining the word count for these free posts and trying to hit that 1,000 word mark for the main story. However, I think for paid posts, I'm going to extend it just a little bit. Because if you're paying, I want you to get more bang for your buck. So I may just extend the amount of coverage that I do behind the paywall, but I'll definitely keep things relatively brief when it comes to the free section of the post. And after that, I'm going to maintain this theme of talking about podcasts on Wednesday, August 6th, as we talk about the new comics journalism. Spoiler, it's podcasts. There's a whole bunch more that I actually have listed on the Substack itself. I have posts planned from now through the rest of the summer, all the way to September 3rd, so feel free to check it out. And then upcoming appearances. So, as I mentioned right off the hop, I am not invited to Fan Expo this year. It's kind of upsetting, but it isn't my fault. Although we applied relatively early, a handful of months out, what I'm quickly learning from the Facebook group Artist Alley Canada is that you actually have to apply for Fan Expo almost while it's still running. Sometimes they open up the registration for the next year on the Sunday of the con, if not the week after. So it's really a matter of keeping an eye out and applying ASAP and trying to get a table as soon as you possibly can so you can get on that list. Yeah, I was thrown on the wait list and I just didn't make it through, which is not entirely unsurprising. So I'm hoping to do better for 2026, but that said, I will be attending Fan Expo and New York Comic Con on the Saturday and Sunday in October. I do have 2 tables set up, both in September, one for Wayside Comics and Cocktails, and again, word on the street at the end of the month at David Pico Square. That's at King and John in Toronto if you're familiar with the area, right outside of the Princess of Wales Theatre. So it should be a lot of fun there. And then what I'm waitlisted for. So there's Mississauga Comic Expo. So again, if you're a local and you're familiar with Mississauga, Square One, the big mall over here, there's a library right across the street. And they do this convention that was created by Jason Liu, and he worked for the library. So it's a pretty cool event. I'm really hoping to get in there. And then next year, I'm on the wait list for Toronto Comic Con, which is the smaller event run by the Fan Expo crew, and Calgary Expo, which is the Calgary version of Fan Expo. So although I won't be tabling with Fan Expo this year, there's still bright days ahead. So if you happen to find yourself in any of these places, let me know. I'd be happy to meet you in person. It'd be a lot of fun. And the Pesto Comics release calendar. So I keep toying with the formatting of this. I'm really trying to figure out how much to share, where to share it, without it being overwhelming. The key thing to note is that From Parts Unknown number 4 runs until August 1st, so if you haven't backed it, there's still time. And then September 3rd, the sequel to Naked Kaiju Woman will be released on Kickstarter. I actually just received the cover and the final 3 pages for this issue, so I'm actually scrambling to get a final draft of Naked Kaiju Woman 3 to Raphael because he's on a roll and he just wants to keep going, so I'm definitely going to keep feeding him and get him going with this 3rd issue, all in hopes of getting it released in February. Of course, all of this calendar is subject to change, but I like to at least have an idea of a target for the future, so that'll be a lot of fun. And this calendar will be a lot more robust after next week's post when I tell you exactly what I'm working on. And then, of course, there's Big Smoke Pulp Volume 2 coming out in October. There's also a section for books that'll be showing up on Kindle Unlimited. So again, if you have a subscription, it helps me if you go and check out the book and, pages read equals me getting paid. So flip through those pages. While you read them, of course, I'm not recommending any kind of fraud. Definitely read the books. But yeah, if you check out the books, it does mean a lot and helps me out as I do get paid out as part of the Kindle Unlimited program. There are plans, once the Kindle Unlimited window ends, to release these books wide. So if Amazon is not your thing, sit tight. I'll definitely be releasing all of these wide. There's just been a couple other things that I've been trying to get in place before I do, including the website for pestocomics.com and getting that all refreshed with a live Kickstarter campaign and all the other things going, and all the writing projects that I'm overdue on delivering to artists. It's been a little bit on the back burner. So I decided for Big Smoke Pulp Volume 1 to extend that Kindle Unlimited run. But otherwise, I'm likely going to keep it at a 90-day window, at which point all these books will be available wide on whatever platform you prefer. However, before I ever do that, I'll always make it available on a Kickstarter. So if Amazon's not your thing, getting it on a Kickstarter will be pivotal because that's how you can get the digital copy. Once it's on Kindle Unlimited, it's exclusive for that window. So keep that in mind if you ever think you might be interested in reading any of the prose stuff that I'm putting out. And on the Instant Ink Comic Book Podcast, we have a new guest, probably one of the best timed releases for an episode, as Christoph actually has a book coming out with DC next week. It's the Californication special, like Kal-El, like Superman. And he's got a cool looking story in there about Gorilla Grodd and all this fun stuff. There's already been some previews in that if you follow him on socials. But he gets a lot into that. And we talk about all just writing comics and representation, and it gets pretty heady at some points. But Christoph's got a lot of interesting things to say, and he's really got some amazing work out there. But yeah, it was just really impressive how on point we were in terms of when this released. Well, I've also tried a couple new things in the editing. I think I'm really figuring out exactly the look of this podcast. So if you've seen earlier episodes and thought they're a little clunky, definitely check them out now. I feel like they're really coming into their own and just how they're edited and how they're put together. So I hope you enjoy that. Please check it out. Of course, the video dropped for both Roberto and Christoph at various points. But aside from that, I think just the editing style and all that's becoming a lot more crisp, which I hope you enjoy. So definitely check it out. And with that, I want to thank you for listening. I'm, again, super late in getting this out. I set these deadlines for myself, but the truth of it is I do let the day job get in the way of releasing my Substack sometimes, which, I mean, I guess priority-wise, it's pretty important I get paid so I could keep paying artists to make these awesome comics. So I do have to focus sometimes, even if it means that this gets out a little later than I may have hoped. Again, I don't think anybody's sitting at their PC just waiting for it to hit their inbox. I do appreciate you folks who do listen and do check it out when you find it. But yeah, I think it's a self-imposed deadline. I still get it out on the day. I've been pretty good. It's been well over a year now that I've been doing it on the day. I haven't been too late. I think there was one maybe where it didn't come out on the Wednesday. It came out on the Thursday, but I've still had weekly posts for well over a year now. So I appreciate you if you're giving me any leeway for not getting it to you right at 3 like I said I would after pushing it from noon like I used to say I would. So I'd certainly appreciate that. That said, I am trying to work a little more ahead in terms of having everything written and recorded, and then just make updates here and there if anything current happens. But it does help if it's mostly recorded, and it's just a matter of making sure that I'm always 1 or 2 posts ahead. With posts like this, where I'm talking about something that happened 3 days before, a lot harder to write ahead, obviously. So I do find myself chasing like I did today. Next week, we're talking about the future. So that one, unsurprisingly, I could write very easily ahead of time and record very easily ahead of time. So it will be, and that'll be a lot of fun. I'm very excited to talk about all the things that I have coming down the pipe. I'm working with so many amazing artists, and not just artists, but editors and all kinds of things. And we're trying a few different things, which again, I will share more in detail next week. But I feel like even with the success that I've found on Kickstarter, I need to find that next step. I need to find that next level. And I'm hoping that all these things that I'm working on will get there, because I appreciate all of you who do listen and do support, but we need to get more of you in for this to continue to be sustainable. So I'm hoping these few avenues that I have open to me end up working out. We'll just have to see how that all goes. But I'm always thankful for places like Wayside. It's a wonderful shop, and the relationship with Omar really came out of the blue. He somehow showed up in my Instagram feed as just a bar in Newmarket, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to try something new. I'm converting my bar into a comic shop. And if any indie creators are interested in having books on my spinner rack, let me know." And this was about the time that I was releasing Crazy Latte Thing Called Love. So I'm like, hey, yeah, definitely. I need to get this in front of more people. You know, when you say local, does Toronto count? Like, I'm in Etobicoke, and he, of course, said yes. And from there, it's been a pretty good relationship. We've run into each other at Fan Expo, and I've had a table in the shop a couple times now. It's been a great experience. I love hanging out with Omar and being in the shop. His convention was a lot of fun too, even if there are a lot of hiccups and a lot of learnings that he admittedly had about how that convention went. In terms of trying to do it all himself with his small team, he needed a lot more help. If he had a little more help, he probably could have gone a longer way with it. But he had a good proof of concept, and I think with what he learned there, he'll hopefully be able to develop something even more amazing. If he can replicate that feeling that he has every day in the shop and expand it out into a convention level, it'll honestly be like one of those must go to conventions. So I'm really hopeful that it all works out, and I'm always trying to offer my help where I can, because I do want to see it succeed and I want to be part of a cool thing. Speaking of wanting to help and seeing things succeed, I've actually volunteered to be the community engagement coordinator for the Toronto Indie Authors Conference. Now they have a nonprofit behind it called Indie Authors Canada, and they're really trying to build something that's not just like a one-time event every April, which the event itself is wonderful. From what it was the first year in the YMCA, just outside the pool, and the whole thing smelled like chlorine, it was a wonderful experience, but it was definitely a proof of concept in itself. The expansion this year to the Toronto Reference Library, it became something else entirely. It was a wonderful couple of days. I had a ton of fun. I met a lot of cool writers and learned a lot of cool things I'm carrying through to my writing. But as part of my new role, what we're doing is every couple months we're having these get-togethers. If you're familiar at all, they used to be put together by Nick, and he's actually moved up in the organization, and I've taken over his responsibilities of getting people together. We're going to be meeting twice at the Toronto Reference Library starting August 10th, so just in 3 short weeks. And it'll be an opportunity for writers to sit down and brainstorm together and actually work on some stuff. And we'll all go out for a beer or a coffee later, depending on what the consensus in the room is once we're all done writing. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm learning a lot, and so I'm really hoping to take what I've learned here and carry it through to the comic side of thing as well. So there's a lot of conventions where you get to meet with fellow creators and all that, but the focus of all those events is selling. You don't really have an opportunity to trade secrets and do all this stuff. You always have to do that after the show. You have to go to BarCon and sit with these other creators and learn that way. That never seems to be the point of the conference. Authors have figured that out long ago. They have their events where they sell, and then they have their trade shows. And we don't seem to have that. We try to do all of it at once, where it's a convention and then you go to the BarCon and that's where you do all that. Not that I want to make things super formal, but my hope is all these things I learn on the writer side, we can adapt that and do that with some comics folks as well. So we'll have to see. I am talking ahead of myself right now. This is not something I'll even be sharing next week, but it's something I've been really thinking about in the back of my mind. That community is so important, and the creator community is important as well. And there's a lot that we can all learn from each other. Instead of all learning the same lessons separately, we can all help each other out. And, rising tide lifts all boats and that. So I always see that community online. I don't see it replicated in person. Again, unless you know the right party to go to after a convention. So we'll see what comes of it. I'm kind of dreaming a little bit of all the things that could be and all that. And I appreciate you sticking around to listen to me ramble on and ruminate about what could be in this community. All that said, I always appreciate you sticking around and listening. And I appreciate those comments from those folks that did say, you know what, I appreciate the shorter posts, but I'm a listener and I want to hear you ramble on at the end. So I'm happy that you guys aren't just cutting out as soon as I'm done the newsletter portion. I really do appreciate it. And I'm always happy to ramble on. and tell you exactly what's going on at the time of recording and how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking about. I don't necessarily do it on purpose that I hold things back for this part or anything, but I do find, as I'm speaking freely, I do tend to share a lot more of not just how I'm feeling about things, but what's going on, what I'm planning. And I do feel like because it's not written down, I could kind of be open about it and tell you I'm working on X. I feel a lot more free to share because if I haven't written it down, I feel like I haven't made that like covenant that I'm definitely going to be doing this. It's more just me telling you what my plans are and how you could really see how they all come about. And it means a lot that you do stick around and you do listen and that you've let me know that you actually enjoy this and do listen to it. With that said, I'm looking at the time. This will definitely be sent out late. I have to edit me stumbling over myself quite a bit and adjust the audio so you don't hear the hum of my air conditioning and my computer and my cat meowing and all that fun stuff. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of tweaking before I get it out. So I apologize for getting it out late, if that even bothers you. But I do appreciate you listening as always. We'll be back next Wednesday as I tell you all the exciting things that I can actually write down and commit to in some form or fashion. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then, as always, stick around because I'm sure I'll have a lot to say about it after the fact. But with that, I'm going to let you go. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy all the news coming out of San Diego Comic-Con this week as we all enjoy it from afar. Unless you're there. If you're there, let me know. I'd love to know how the show is this year. I'll probably try to make it out next year, but we'll just have to see how that goes. With that, I want to thank you for listening. As always, we'll talk next Wednesday. Have a good one.